Nuclear war isn't the only thing on Biden's mind. He went to Maryland to give a speech about the economy. Here's how that went.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
I have 2 words for you. What the
27 days until the election. Today, your final day to register to vote. See your county clerk's offices if you need some help. You can get online. You can call. You can go in person. Montauk County, Callaway County, Cole County, Boone County. Get out, get the deal done. And I would highly encourage you, look at your ID. You got the photo ID. I know you have one, but make sure it's all up to date and all that stuff, because I don't want you to have issues 27 days from now when we go to the polls. Today, final day to register. And I want to start this morning focusing a little bit on some of these national races. And I want to highlight that from 2 days ago, Stephen Colbert, whose ratings have been plummeting for a while now. As a matter of fact, Fox has the number. Yeah, Fox beating ABC's Jimmy Kimmel. They're beating Jimmy Fallon. They're beating Stephen Colbert. Greg Gutfeld at night is beating those shows. Just recently set a record. This is on cable news. Far fewer homes, and they are beating them in the Nielsen ratings. But I wanted to highlight that because happened a couple of days ago, but we get people asking, like, is that a parody? That's not a parody. You're president of the United States said, I have 2 words for you, made in America. Now, we all have gaffes. I am not immune. Hannah's got my back on this. Stop it.
I could probably pull up a couple.
Oh, yeah. We've got plenty. I'm like John Fetterman sometimes. But I want to highlight that his reputation precedes him. We know the issues that he has with his mental acuity. And this is a real problem because as we're 27 days out from the national election, there are still people that are ignoring that. And this is important because this is rampant in the Democrat Party, by the way. And we're going to focus on some national races here. John Fetterman, Pennsylvania, who, by the way, has a brilliant campaign billboard. I want to hold this up. So if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, he's got a billboard in Philadelphia. John Fetterman running against Dr. Mehmet Oz, of course, longtime TV dude. But he's put up a billboard that says, Dr. Oz. He's a Cowboys fan in Philadelphia, home of the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles. That's a pretty neat campaign thing. Not effective, but it's kind of funny. Makes me laugh, but I want to focus on John Fetterman here for a minute because this is an issue that is rampant amongst Democrats and something we need to consider locally. Now, much has been said about John Fetterman, Dr. Oz, for what polls are worth, they're neck and neck. We can look at the polls in Arizona in that Senate race. Mark Kelly, neck and neck pretty much with GOP nominee Blake Masters. And those races, they matter to us. It's control of the Senate of the United States of America, and it matters to us here in the heart of America. It matters to us here in the heart of Missouri. And much has been said about John Fetterman and where he is mentally following his stroke. And I want to be very clear here because I get this sometimes. Last night, I was at the Tigers on the Prowl event, big annual event, several hundred people getting together, great cause, great charity, bunch of cool people out there. Tim from Atterbury Auction and Real Estate, Shane Winters, who does financial counseling, a whole bunch of local folks out there. But somebody approached me as I'm on my way out the door and says, you really shouldn't be knocking John Fetterman. He had a stroke. And I said, well, 2 things. Number one, I have not knocked John Fetterman for his mental stuff following his stroke. And number 2, if we do talk about it, it's in a factual basis. Nobody's knocking the guy because he had a stroke. But that's how the far left, they gaslight us. You're talking about John Fetterman. He had a real health issue. The issue is the people that are supporting him. Listen, this guy's not right for office. Besides the political aspect, he just ain't all ready and stuff. As a matter of fact, MSNBC, there's a reporter, Dasha Burns, and she did a sit-down interview with him. Now, this is in very friendly territory. She is on MSNBC. And before they played their conversation, she did an interview with John Fetterman. And this is very insightful. This is very telling. This is important to know, okay? Because nobody is knocking John Fetterman because he had a stroke. Nobody's knocking him for that. But it's a real issue for people that say, yeah, he's ideal for office. He's not. Check out what Dasha Burns had to say prior to airing this interview.
We had a monitor set up so that he could read my questions because he still has lingering auditory processing issues.
And that's not a problem. Sure, the guy had a stroke. Yeah, you're going to have some issues. That's not the issue. Nobody's poking fun at this guy because he had a stroke. Don't let them gaslight you. The problem is he's running for office.
As a result of the stroke, which means he has a hard time understanding what he's hearing. Now, once he reads the question, he's able to understand. You'll hear he also still has some problems, some challenges with speech. And I'll say, Katie, that just in some of the small talk prior to the interview, before the closed captioning was up and running, it did seem that he had a hard time understanding our conversation.
Again, nobody's making fun of the guy because he's had a stroke, and those are facts from friendly territory. MSNBC. She's saying even before we sat down and did our interview, he wasn't understanding what's happening, and that's fine. Randy Tobler, who's here weekdays 4 to 6, he covers this stuff brilliantly. Randy Tobler, besides being an incredible host here on the radio station, also happens to be a doctor, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, all that stuff, auditory problems, problems with comprehension. Yeah, that stuff is all natural following a stroke, but what's not natural is to say, I'm the best guy to be in office. I'm better than Dr. Oz. Yeah. And yeah, he's like lieutenant governor. He's also hypocritical. He says, we need to be tougher on crime. He has been incredibly weak on crime. And you look at the number one of the top factors when it comes to voting here in 27 days. We talk about crime. You know what it really is, John? I think we say crime, but what it really is, it's how we as people, how we feel when we're out on the streets, whether you're in Pennsylvania, whether you're in Columbia, whether you're in Jefferson City. It's crime, but it's that feeling it leaves you with. Nobody likes to go outside and be unsure of things. So, John, I have 2 words for you. Get out and vote. Those are the 2 words. Yeah. And here's the thing. So listen, and Biden is sure he's almost 80 years old. White House, by the way, guidance from the White House is they're telling Democrats, hey, let's not hype the president's birthday coming up. We're not really excited about celebrating his 80th birthday, whichever one it is for you. And that's fine because that's what happens when you live long enough. You turn 80, but it doesn't mean you should be making decisions that could have impacts regarding nuclear war and impacts on your checking account and things like that. There's John Marsh. Good morning, bud. My name is Branden Rathert. There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
Brian Hausworth is here too. Stephanie Bell is going to be back on Monday. So this stuff is important. I do want to kind of look at some of these national polls real quick. This stuff matters to us here in mid-Missouri and Arizona. There is a new, for what polling is worth, I always still find it fascinating. Mark Kelly, who has distanced himself from Joe Biden, doesn't want him to come campaign, stumbled when he was asked if he thinks he should run for re-election. He leads Blake Masters, the GOP nominee, and that lead has actually increased, and you could say here's why. There's a guy by the name of Mark Victor. He is a libertarian. He's in the race. The support for the libertarian in the race has increased about 12 percentage points over the past couple of months. So people say, so is that a libertarian in the race that's fouling things up in Arizona where Republicans potentially have an opportunity to pick up a seat in the Senate, what is already a close race? One of the things I hear, well, you can't say that libertarians siphon votes from Republicans. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a great conversation. It was last Thursday. Jonathan Dine, Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate here in Missouri. I think it was 7 o'clock hour last Thursday. If you want to go to our websites, 939theeagle.com and kwos.com. I think it was 7:35 from last Thursday's show. Great conversation with the Libertarian candidate. But one of the things I wonder about, I still hear Republicans say, well, you know, you can't say that libertarians are siphoning votes from conservatives or Republicans in races, except for the '92 presidential election. Then the third party candidate Ross Perot, he did siphon votes from George. Yeah, so we'll use that. So usually libertarian in a race, it doesn't matter. It doesn't throw a monkey wrench into things, except for in '92 when H. Ross Perot took votes from our Republican. So polling showing in Arizona that Mark Kelly has a slight lead. You look at the Senate race in Georgia, Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker post. And by the way, this is polling following the revelations that came, or the allegations, I think would be more accurate, regarding Herschel Walker, the other candidate in that Georgia Senate race. Polling post-abortion revelations and Herschel Walker's ex-girlfriend shows that race is neck and neck within the margin of error. Kemp has a lead in the gubernatorial race over Stacey Abrams, who continues to lie about losing her election a couple of years ago. So that's kind of what's happening on a national stage. Final day to register to vote. And I'm wondering, I was at a political fundraiser again last night. This for a Boone County candidate. Her name is Shimon Jones. Interesting story because, number one, she's a Republican in a very liberal area. She's also black. She's running for Recorder of Deeds. Was at a fundraiser for her last night. And here's a story, John, that comes up all the time. Voter turnout, voter turnout, voter turnout. And I'm looking as we look, and again, I get it. Primary back in August. You look at the voter turnout in Boone County. I think it was about 20%. Cole County, actually, I think for a primary, Cole County at 30%. I think that's decent. But here's what I and I don't have an answer for this. Is okay. We talk about low voter turnout. How do we get more people to the polls 27 days from now? What's the trick? This is something that came up last night, because we can sit here and say it till we're blue in the face. Get out and vote, make a plan, tell your neighbors, all that. But it's not translating into reality. It's just not working out that way. Coming up, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of interesting dynamics at play. Coming up, you may have heard about this story. Something, John, you highlighted yesterday, SCOTUS case regarding pigs. California Supreme Court. Those are three phrases you don't hear looped together that often. But this could have effect on what we pay for pork here in mid-Missouri. 6:35, Don Nicodim from the Missouri Pork Producers Association. He's going to be joining us, talking about why this case
if we were producing more, if we had the meeting our own country's needs, we wouldn't have to be asking others for their help. But if we did need help, they would have more reason to be helpful.
That's Jerry Moran. He is a senator from Kansas State over to the left of us talking about OPEC and Biden. That's what's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Remember a couple days ago, Biden caught hot mic. You don't F with the Biden. And then OPEC, they promptly did. Other countries promptly did F with the Biden. So now President Joe Biden saying there will be consequences for Saudi Arabia as the OPEC alliance moves to cut oil production, and Democratic lawmakers calling for a freeze on cooperation with the Saudis. And here's the problem. Here's the thing that happened. So the whole world, we know, following January 20th, 2021, whenever the big guy was sworn in and talked about unity and all those unicorn type of things, the world knows there are no consequences. Joey's incredibly weak, and that's bad for you, and that's bad for me, because on a worldwide stage, we really, really do look bad. And please understand, they're not conservative talking points. They're really just facts. We look bad, we look weak, and it's infringing on the safety of all of us. Biden suggesting that he would soon take action, right, as aides. And by the way, don't we want the guy to do well? We really do. We want the country to do well, but it's just not happening. So Biden's suggesting he would soon take action as aides announced that the administration is reevaluating its relationship with the kingdom in light of the oil production cut that White House officials say will help another OPEC member, which happens to be Russia, saying it's going to pad its coffers as it continues its nearly 8-month war in Ukraine. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, Connecticut, Rep. Roe-Conn of California, introduced legislation that would immediately pause all U.S. arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Biden administration developing plans for Venezuelans with financial sponsors to be granted parole to enter the U.S., similar to how Ukrainians have been admitted after Russia's invasion. Two very different things happening, though, and here's how the White House, they try to justify. Well, you know, in Venezuela, they're going through the same thing, and yeah, things are horrible in Venezuela, but my goodness. You know, how many people can you let into your house? You know, you're doing charity. How often can you open up your checkbook and give to charitable causes, whether it's Alzheimer's, whether it's for folks that need some help with food during the holiday? How often can we open up our checkbook and help other people? The way it is in your house, it's the same as a country. And Democrats just don't get it. 4 officials offered broad outlines of the plan to deal with a large increase with Venezuelans arriving at the U.S. border with Mexico. It'd be more proper if the Associated Press said, here, they're crossing illegally. Venezuela, can't you stay in Mexico for a while? Coming up, California, pigs, SCOTUS, and why you might be paying more for pork. Don Nicodim, Missouri Pork Producers Association. He's joining us 5 minutes from now. Important case before the Supreme Court of the United States that could affect you.
California voters passed Proposition 12 in 2018, which requires pork sold in the state to come from pigs whose mothers were raised in at least 24 square feet of space.
So we're focused here in Missouri. I know the story sounds kind of weird. We're talking California, pigs, SCOTUS, and why it matters to us here in mid-Missouri, where we're thinking about Propositions 3, recreational marijuana, Proposition 5, which has to do with the national card. But right now we're focusing on Proposition 12 in California, case before the Supreme Court of the United States. And this has implications, has the potential to have implications on us here in mid-Missouri. So I want to welcome into the show Don Nicodim. Don Nicodim is with the Missouri Pork Association. We want to welcome you into the show. Let's start here. We want to try to bottom line this as easily as we can right now because there's a couple of different levers here. But number one, what is Proposition 12, Don?
Well, Brandon, pleased to be on the show. Prop 12 is an effort by animal activists in California to put restrictions on how people raise pigs in other states. And bottom line, it makes pork more expensive, less available, and that fits well with the animal activist goal of people not eating meat. So there's an ulterior motive, and to make the change to this is going to be very expensive for producers, and ultimately it's going to be much more expensive for consumers.
So so when they passed this, it wasn't really about, well, we want to be nice to the pigs before we slaughter them and eat them. Really, the ulterior motive was, we don't want you to eat meat, and here's a way that government can control how you behave personally. Am I right in that assessment?
Well, I would completely agree with that, yes.
So then what happened in the case before the Supreme Court? That's what this is about. Kind of what happened yesterday?
Well, they had oral arguments, and I didn't get to listen to them entirety. Sounds like from what I did hear, they went well. People asked a lot of the right questions. The case before us centers on what's called the Dormant Commerce Clause, which is a constitutional provision that says states can't put impositions on other states to regulate trade. I mean, it's kind of like right now, Brandon, we're in the trade issues with countries all around the world because country X, Y, and Z puts either a tariff or a non-tariff trade barrier on our product to keep our product out of their country. And Commerce Clause in our Constitution was placed there to keep states from doing that to each other. So California is in effect doing this if this law goes into effect. And so we're asking the Supreme Court to tell them you can't violate the law.
All right. So here in mid-Missouri, why should I care about this?
Well, for producers to change facilities and protocols on how they raise pigs is going to cost, in many cases, tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars for some larger operations. Not even the real largest ones will have that kind of cost. I mean, it's going to be across the board. And to comply with what California is telling everybody else to do. And mind this, Brandon, California raises very, very few pigs of its own. Almost all of their pork consumption is imported into California from states here in the Midwest primarily. So folks that don't raise pigs in California are now attempting to tell people that do know how to really do a great job of raising pigs, how they should do it.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh and interrupt what you say, but that is because that is, and again, I always go back to, Don, you know, these aren't like conservative talking points. We're not about railing against people that disagree with us. We're about highlighting the silliness, and I agree. The people in California want to tell us how we should do things and why we should care. Ultimately, this could mean that what they want to do because of they want to impose their moral values on other people, that here in mid-Missouri, when we go to Schulte's, when we go to Mosier's, we could be paying more for pork. Don Nicodim, Missouri Pork Association, talking about this case in front of the Supreme Court of the United States that ultimately could end up causing us to pay more for pork. He's joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Oh, sure. And I think it was interesting yesterday. I know you guys talked about New Zealand and their new tax they're wanting to impose on dairy and beef and sheep. All right. So you look at California again. Here's a good what if for you. What if they would pass a law that says hey, you can't sell any beef or poultry or dairy products or sheep products in California unless you tax the producers in your state. I mean, there's no end to the idiocy sometimes that takes place in these kind of activities.
Yeah. I want to ask you, this is kind of off topic, but this just occurred to me, political, not political, kind of what we're talking about here this morning, Don. We talk about people getting out to vote, and this, I guess, actually, we could say this is very political, and it affects our pocketbooks. It affects what happens with our bank account and our wallets and the money in purses and things like that. We always encourage people, please get out and vote. Today is the deadline to register to vote in Missouri. 27 days until we go to the polls on November the 8th. And so maybe kind of out of your wheelhouse, but I think that's why you're absolutely qualified to answer this question, something we want to talk about on the show this morning. From a non-political point of view, I can sit here, Marsh can sit here, and we can go to, pachyderm meetings and GOP meetings. People say, we got to get out and vote. We got to get out and vote. Yet we look at voter turnout, and it doesn't seem to reflect us urging people to get out and vote. From your point of view, you're in the ag industry, not really in the political realm. Just as a regular Joe Schmo, Don, what do you think would encourage people to get out and vote on November the 8th?
Well, that's a good question, Brandon, and everybody struggles with that. Yeah. I think right now, I guess you could say that, if things like what happened in California were because of low voter turnout.
Yep. Yeah.
And to put it in point there, they claim it was a landslide victory. People voted for this Prop 12, like 63% of the California voters voted in favor. But kind of boil those numbers down, and as I looked at it, they had about less than 40% voter turnout in that election. And so in reality, it wasn't 63% of the California eligible voters. It was just of those that bothered to vote. That's what happens to us here on many issues. When people don't come out to vote, a small percentage of the population makes the decision for you.
I think I think you're right. Don Nicodim, Missouri Pork Association. Before we let you go, I want to highlight, we talk about how important the ag industry is to the state of Missouri. Pork industry, how are we doing here in the Show Me State?
Well, Missouri ranks between 6th and 7th nationally in pork production. Of course, Iowa is the largest producer of pork in the country. And all total, our industry adds $1 billion+ to the state's economy each year and provides upwards of 30,000 jobs across the state related to the pork industry. So it's a significant factor. We consume a lot of corn and a lot of soybean meal that the grain farmers produce out here. And so it's important from a variety of aspects.
Mm-hmm. And the best way to grill, if I'm hanging out at your house, Marsh and me and Brian Hounsworth and producer Han all hanging out at your house, and you're doing pork, what are you cooking for us? What's your best recipe?
I tell you, it's all really good. The key is do not overcook it. We have a real struggle with people that want to cook it until it's tough and dry. Mm-hmm. 145 is what USDA says the internal temperature should be. We encourage people to get a thermometer. You can keep track of your temperature on that. But, chops and loins and ribs are just hard to beat. And we do lots of pulled pork because the flavor is just immense.
If you're doing a pork tenderloin, are you marinating it?
Yeah, you can. We do them a variety of ways, but take them and double or butterfly cut them real thick and wrap bacon around them and grill them. They're pretty good that way, too. Of course, anything you put bacon on is good, right?
Amen, brother. My dad is co-hosting on the show tomorrow. He's a regular, semi-regular co-host here on the show, and we have this dispute all the time. And because, for example, when it comes to beef, medium rare, Hannah can get my back on this. I frown on people who get their beef beyond medium rare.
Not only frown, but judge.
Judge, I get all judgy and stuff. But when it comes to pork, I'm always telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, it's got to be a little bit more done in beef. And my dad says that's not true anymore. That's like a holdover from the old days when we were worried about getting, there could have been potentially more issues in the way pork was produced. But he says it's not really true anymore. Is my dad?
That's great. Listen to your dad. He's right. Medium rare.
Don Nicodim, Missouri Pork Association. Anything else you would like to add before we let you go?
No, not really. I did get a message from Mark Alford right before we went on. He said, do a good job with Branden Rathert this morning. So Mark's a great guy. So I'll give him a kudo there. So.
All right. Very cool. Don, we appreciate you. Anything that we can do for you here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, you let us know.
All right. Keep in touch. Tell Halsworth hi.
All right. We'll do it. Mark Alford, actually. Yeah, he did. He sent a text. Mark Alford, he's running for the seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. Marsh, he says, hey, Mark here, watching from St. Louis this morning on your YouTube channel. Looking good. Appreciate that. You can watch us on the YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And here's how you can use that. Here's what we get from a lot of people. We heard from a dry cleaners recently. We also heard from folks like at Gaps Automotive where they have a TV out in their lobby. They put YouTube up on the TV out in the lobby. They put it up on the smart TV, and then people watch it, and here's why. Because you get local news, local analysis, local opinion on things that are happening. Showers this morning, otherwise some sunshine, high 73. By the way, you hearing any scuttlebutt post-special session, Marsh, regarding the special session Jefferson City that ended last week? You hearing anything like post-buzz now that it's over? I know. 2 months from now, pre-filing starts. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, also hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. He's going to be joining us an hour from now. He's here at 7:35 to give you the
We could have done this during regular session and saved that money. There was no reason to spend over $100,000 bringing legislators from all over the state. Our teachers are paid at the bottom rung nationally, and there's no reason for that. So why are we spending $100,000 additionally on top of a tax cut to do this?
Local State Rep David Tyson Smith chatting with ABC 17, talking about the cost of the special session just in the House. And he talks about, he's kind of critical that there was this special session, which we have this veto session every year. But he's talking about teacher pay. Why are we spending money on this? Well, incidentally, so with these tax cuts that people like producer Hannah will be getting starting in January, these tax cuts that Marsh are getting, that Houseworth is getting, that you're getting, that teachers are getting, they will see more money because of this. I think it's disingenuous to complain about, well, teacher pay, we're spending $100,000 on a special session. Well, in that special session, it's getting more money for teachers. Interestingly enough, if I had the opportunity, I haven't talked with Mr. Tyson Smith. Last time we had communications, and by the way, personally, I like the guy. He does a lot for Mid-Missouri, and obviously we disagree on politics. But the last communications we had, he called one of our local state reps, Chuck Bass. He said he was a liar, and I asked David Tyson Smith, can you please give me some clarification on what it is that Chuck Basie lied about? Could not, would not answer the question, which is par for the course, and I don't understand this. If you say, and I'm not picking on just David Tyson Smith here, but this seems to be kind of like whenever you pledge your allegiance and salute that you're going to be in the Democrat Party, this seems to be something you have to sign, that whenever you get asked tough questions about what you say or about what you believe, you don't answer the question. We see it on a national level. We see it on a local level, for example, with David Tyson Smith. We've seen it a lot recently with Democrats on a national level saying, hey, this secure border that you keep talking about, why do we keep seeing an influx of fentanyl that's coming over and killing kids locally? It's coming across the secure border. How is that happening? And they don't answer the questions. We heard from, or actually didn't hear from, the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser. She had a staffer who apparently assaulted a guy in the parking lot of a gym. It's kind of funny. Marsh, when was the last time you wore jean shorts? Jorts, I think as they were called. When was the last time you wore something like that? Yeah, been a while. And I got... Yeah, but nobody does. But this guy, there's video in the parking lot. This staffer for Muriel Bowser, mayor in D.C., he's in jorts and a muscle shirt. He looks all amped up on the steroids and shoves a guy he's bullying. And the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, who's one of those folks that got upset because in her sanctuary city, there's illegal immigrants in her sanctuary city. She was asked about this incident with her staff.
I haven't seen it, and I won't
You're
be
looking at it now.
Oh, I actually won't. Actually, I asked you for it earlier, where I could review it, and that's where I'll review it in my office.
You can see it right now, though. We're showing you the video.
I'll review it in my office.
Well, she gets all indignant and stuff because she's asked about, hey, a very important topic. By the way, the reporter covering this story,
and per usual, didn't want to answer any questions from Fox 5.
That's a TV station in D.C., and she's saying...
Throwing a little shade.
Man, that is... Yeah, Fox affiliate saying, as per usual, this Democrat didn't want to answer any questions, man. I love it. It's crazy. This rain we're seeing around here, rain, lightning, should be out of here, I don't know, maybe by lunchtime today on our way up to 73 today. It is a bona fide case of voter fraud in Alaska. They do a competition there every year. It's called Fat Bear Week. And I guess people get on the internet when they're done goofing around on the Tinder. They get onto the internet and they vote for fat bears in Alaska's Katmai Peninsula, which usually if you're watching Nat Geo Wild or whatever, you see videos of bears swatting at salmon. More often than not, it's grizzlies in the Katmai Peninsula that they're boning up for wintertime. That's the reason I say I'm putting on weight. I'm boning up for winter. Anyhow, they do this competition. They keep track of the bears, and people get on. As a matter of fact, to the tune of well over almost 150,000 people voted in Fat Bear Week 2022. But apparently there was fraud. People are right. Election fraud does exist. Watchers of Fat Bear Week rocked by a scandal over the weekend when the Katmai National Park Twitter unveiled that spam votes had attempted to sway the election between the top two contenders. See, election fraud, it's a real thing. Points for Marsh. We're going to nominate you for one of our winners of the week. Feel Good Friday at 8:35. Coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock. How should we spend ARPA money here in mid-Missouri? We're going to cover that for you.
Nuclear war isn't the only thing on Biden's mind. He went to Maryland to give a speech about the economy. Here's how that went.
Let me start off with 2 words: made in America.
I have 2 words for you. What the
27 days until the election. Today's, I know. I have 2 words, Marsh. Get out and vote. Those are the 2 most important words we can tell you this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring John Marsh, producer Hannah, Brian Hausworth. My name is Branden Rathert. That's important, and we're watching what's happening with these national races. And you know who's really good with covering this stuff? Gary Nolan, host of the Gary Nolan Show, weekday morning starting at 9 here on the radio station. Today, there's he's got a guest fill-in. Jennifer Bukowski is filling in. She was on yesterday. I like it when Jennifer fills in for Gary, but he's really good covering this national stuff. But here's right now why this national stuff, matters. It matters to us here in mid-Missouri. We are paying attention like never before to some of these national races. Senate race, Arizona, Democrat leads there. Pennsylvania, Fetterman, Oz, basically tied. Georgia, Warnock, Herschel Walker, basically tied. And I think big developments yesterday regarding Tulsi Gabbard. Am I overselling this, John? And here's the thing. I get it. Tulsi Gabbard has always been maybe a little bit more of a conservative Democrat, but she's a Democrat. She's a well-known name. Was an asset, I believe, to the Democrat Party. She ran for president. And it wasn't just that she announced that she was leaving the party. It was what she said.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness.
And what she said is accurate. Am I overselling the importance of what she did? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is definitely news. Now, she's been critical of the party leadership for some time now, but really what she's maybe best known for is she's been warning that America shouldn't be getting involved in a number of these wars. That's really kind of her cornerstone of her positions. On a lot of issues, she is still to the left. I mean, there's no doubt. But these, she's been critical, and boy, the Twitter kind of blew up when she made her comments.
Yeah, on both sides, or all 3 sides, or all the sides. And in the impact of what she said about the thinking of a progressive Democrat, I think is important, because we're seeing that playing out in some local stuff, too. ARPA funding, for example, in mid-Missouri. For example, in Columbia, they're launching a portal where you can go on. Here's how I think the ARPA money should be spent. A lot of folks saying, hey, let's give it to the homeless. I think that's a bad idea, and I'll tell you why. But first, phone number is 874-9390. Let's chat with Bob. Bob, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, I was bringing up that Tulsi Gabbard thing, too. I think she's doing all this. She's got no shot in Hawaii now.
Yeah.
But she may be trying to get her name out for VP nomination with Trump in 2024.
Yeah.
Like I texted you earlier, she would kind of bring in the moderate Democrats, the undecided bonds and all that actually pull the strings.
That's, you know what, that's an excellent point, because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. But you might be onto something there as a family unit. If you have, let's say, Bob, thank you for the phone call, man. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to be a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS AM 950. But let's stereotype a little bit the mom unit in the household, and she's saying, you know what, I like this Tulsi Gabbard because she thinks this way about some things. And maybe, and to Bob's point about those undecideds, the politically unhoused, we don't say politically homeless anymore because it's not politically correct. God, please save me from being PC, man. Politically homeless, regretful Biden voters. I think there's something to what Bob's saying. And yeah, it could be helpful to the Republican Party. 27 days until the election. And yeah, it might be politically advantageous. Let's say she decides, yeah, I want to be Ron DeSantis' running mate in 2024. She wants to be his running mate. Yeah, it's politically advantageous. But if you look at her history and what she has said over the years, former presidential candidate, big name, an asset to the Democrat Party. If you look at what she's said, yeah, it's politically advantageous, but I think she's being true to herself. This is not, what she's saying is not necessarily new. She's just officially announcing, I'm leaving the Democrat Party.
And it is definitely news. There's no doubt about that. And also, she was saying that the party's become too woke. She made that very clear. And but she basically is saying there's a military-industrial complex, which, by the way, for older listeners, they may remember a president by the name of Dwight Eisenhower. He basically said the same thing when he was leaving office. He warned against it. He used different terms than she did, but very similar. Republicans don't have a lot of power in Hawaii, to say the least. It's very democratic, so we'll see what happens with her. Maybe she wants to be in a cabinet somewhere down the line. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
And to political wokeness, when you hear stuff like the Reverend Al Sharpton say things like this.
Of Stacey Abrams, unless you are so insecure as a man that you feel that you've got to be manipulated by probably some provocateurs or the faith community.
So he's saying, if you're a dude and you don't vote for Stacey Abrams, it's because you're not secure in your masculinity. That's the wokeness she's talking about. There was a movie, Marsh, have you heard of it? I think the movie was called Bros or something.
That's the one based on the true story of Rathert and Marsh, right?
Hey, be careful, Hannah.
What?
Bros, and it was promoted as, hey, this is a gay LGBTQD whatever movie. It's, you go see it, and yeah, romantic comedy for the gays. The movie bombed, and here's why it bombed, because hetero white dudes were uncomfortable with it, and that's that wokeness. No, see, they're blaming people. That's the thing. The movie's not good, I'm guessing. I haven't seen it. I don't know, but you look at all the critics and say, yeah, the movie's just not that good. But the producers of the movie are saying, well, because it's people that are homophobic. Listen, if I choose not to go see a movie, it doesn't mean I'm homophobic. It means, number one, I don't hear so well, and I can't go to the movie theaters. The sounds are too bassy. And I fall asleep when I see Frozen with the grandkids. I fall asleep in the movie theater. But that's that gaslighting. It's two things. Number one, it's gaslighting. You didn't go see the movie because you're a homophobe. No, we didn't see the movie because it didn't really get positive reviews. The other thing that happens there when the producers of this movie, Bros, say, well, you didn't go see it because you're a homophobe. Again, it's not taking responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault. No ownership of responsibility. You made a crappy movie. Nobody wants to see it. Own it. Say, yeah, we made a crappy movie. Nobody. And to blame other people, it's just crazy. And that's why I worry about how we're going to spend ARPA money here in Columbia. City of Columbia has opened a portal. You can get down and talk about what it is you want to spend the ARPA money on.
About $25 million. And one of the things that they are looking at is using some of it for this proposed homeless shelter that would be up near the power plant on the business loop. Millions of dollars. Now, it would include shower facilities and laundry facilities, things like that. There's still a lot of questions about whether or not that's going to happen, and we're still a long ways off. But there's also other people that want to spend it on other programs, so that's something that's out there. Jeff City doesn't have nearly that kind of money coming in. I want to say, John, it's $7 million, something like that. Yeah, but exactly, Jeff City proper, Cole County gets its own, but we'll see what happens on that homeless shelter.
What are we saying in Jeff City and Cole County about how we should spend ARPA money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I would like to see, and I know especially like in Boone County, where elected servants just completely ruined businesses. The director of the health department and the mayor who didn't take a strong stance against some of this stuff, limiting the number of people that could go into businesses, limiting all the stuff they did, and they crushed small local businesses. Small local businesses, the backbone of the Missouri economy. It really is. And what leadership, for example, in Columbia specifically, what they did, they crushed, they ruined people's lives because of decisions made by progressives. These are real life local examples. And they ruin these people. Give the ARPA money to them. Give it to the restaurant owners and the other business owners who had to shut down. Give it to the people who lost their jobs. Don't take money from my bank account and give it to the homelessness. Don't do that. And by the way, yeah, homeless people, ultimately, if we help them, it saves us some long-term problems in the future. Let the private industry handle that. Don't take money. Don't get into my bank account and take my money and give it for that. Don't do that. Let private... You're right. It is. And by the way, and I've worked with homeless people over the years. I'm acutely aware of what it is that they want and don't want. And these leaders, they don't get it. It's, again, build the shelter and the rainbows and the unicorns, and they're all going to come together and hold hands and walk through the courtyard, and life is going to be good. It simply will not work that way. And that is why elections matter. Coming up a little bit later here, the special session in Missouri. What's happening post-session? Some very impactful things happened in October in Jefferson City, things that make a difference to your bank account. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, is here, 7:35, 8:10. Interesting piece regarding stereotypes. You know, we stereotype because it works. There's a reason we have stereotypes, but it doesn't work all the time. As a matter of fact, Lincoln University, Chief of Police, Lincoln University is here at 8:10, and we're going to talk about those times when stereotyping doesn't work. Fascinating. That's coming up at 8:10. By the way, tomorrow on the show, Senator Roy Blunt. He joins us about 7:45. My dad.
It's an update on that McDonald's story from last week.
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's...
Ooh, 7:26.
Missed it by that much. Time.
Oh, you almost had it.
Oh, is this close, man? Time for What's Hot with Hannah. This is something we do every day about this time. It's just kind of fun stuff to, when you're at work or doing happy hour tonight. Did you hear about, heard about it on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What do you got for us today?
I'm going to try to carefully tell this story because I had a little slip up last week. Where
even Marsh is giggling.
And I believe Brian Houseworth later in the week made the same error that I did. So I'm going to try to proceed with caution here. But McDonald's is doing adult Happy Meals. And you can choose between like a 10-piece McNugget meal or a Big Mac meal. And it comes with a little toy inside. Just like when you were a kid and you'd get a Happy Meal and your nuggets always came with a little toy. They're doing...
There you go.
No. Y'all have your head in the gutter that time.
Yeah. By the way, whenever we talk about this Hannah's not being rude. That's us because my mind goes there. My mind is taking me there, and I apologize, but.
And I usually am the one with my head in the gutter, but I'm not this time. That's all on you two. But basically, the McDonald's employees have taken to the internet, and they're begging people not to order these Happy Meals.
How come?
I guess that McDonald's have just been overrun with people ordering these, and so they've been really busy. And, of course, most places right now are short-staffed. Yeah. And these poor McDonald's workers are having to deal with cranky people that had to wait a long time for their Happy Meal. And McDonald's employees are just saying, we've been super busy. Basically, please stop ordering these. Please stop coming in to order these because we're tired. I don't know. It's got a whole special box, though, that comes with it. So it might take some time. I don't know. I guess so. But basically, there's just been some people who are itching to get their hands on these adult Happy Meals, and they're kind of acting like turds. And it's been a higher volume of people acting like turds.
Here's what I think it is. It's because a lot of people, they don't care to admit. It's like whenever you make innuendos, listen, it's not our fault. We're not bad for making the innuendo. It's my fault when I giggle at stuff like that because that's where my head goes. I didn't say anything, but that's where my head goes. But I bet it's a bunch of folks out there because they're wanting to go through the drive-thru and, welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order? Yeah. Can I get the adult Happy Meal? I bet that's what it is. It's a bunch of folks that are giggling at themselves at ordering an adult Happy Meal. That's what's... Yeah, right, because here we are, 7:29 in the heart of Missouri, talking about it on a Wednesday morning, 27 days away from the election, final day to register to vote. Quick thing on local ARPA funding. I love, by the way, coming up a little bit before 8 o'clock, right about 7:50 or so, listener mailbag. You want to get something in the listener mailbag? We'll read your emails, text at 874-939. We did about 7:45. Amanda says, ARPA money locally. We should do something with the 6370 interchange to give us a sense of entry into mid-Missouri when you're coming from St. Louis or maybe there at City when you're coming from KC. I agree. Post-session buzz in Jefferson City. Scott Faughn is here 5 minutes from now. Talk about it.
We could have done this during regular session and saved that money. There was no reason to spend over $100,000 bringing legislators from all over the state. Our teachers are paid at the bottom rung nationally, and there's no reason for that. So why are we spending $100,000 additionally on top of a tax cut to do this?
David Tyson Smith talking to our news partners, ABC 17, complaining about the cost of the special session. My take is he's just burnt because things didn't go his way. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, and hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Does he have a legitimate gripe there, Scott?
No, but I will say this. I mean, you get what you elect. When you elect the speaker who makes $30,000 a year plus Uber fares, he's going to call a bunch of technical sessions, and that's just the way it is. The Senate doesn't really come in for technical sessions. When the House calls a technical session, a lot of reps come in that, let's be honest, probably don't have to be there, and they collect that full per diem. I'm sure Brian knows of the penny, but I think it's about $150.
Yeah.
So that's what drives the cost up. But, I mean, yes, he's got a point. However, I'll be honest with you, if they would have kept that money, I don't think they'd have spent it like Representative Smith wanted anyway. So, but that's what every person says about a special session. When you're in the minority party, is it costs too much.
Well, incidentally, whenever Kip Kendrick, shortly after he was reelected, personally, I like Kip. He's running for Boone County Presiding Commissioner. Connie Leopard is who I would vote for in that race. Connie Leopard, not Kip Kendrick. But whenever Kip Kendrick, and he'd be on the show all the time, shortly after he was reelected and then resigned after that election, cost of a special election to elect David Tyson Smith.
That's a good point.
I know, right? I stole that from Cherie Tolson-Reich. Here's the other thing. David Tyson Smith here was complaining when the teacher pay is low. Well, you know what they did in the special session with their tax breaks? Teachers will now get more money in their paychecks because of what happened in the special session.
Although I will say this, David Tyson Smith is a very articulate, very good. He's an attorney. He knows how to argue. I mean, the real point is I'll be interested to see if 2 months from now anybody actually notices the tax cut. Because the fact of the matter is state taxes are not that big of a part. When Donald Trump cut federal taxes, they're a huge part of your check. So I think it's a totally logical argument of, would it have been better to blow up the 6370 interchange and change it, or add a third lane to I-70, or will you notice the amount you get back? I think that's a very fair public policy discussion, but I've never met a minority party that didn't complain about the cost of a special session, ever.
Everybody complains about something. And I got to say this, David Tyson Smith, great exchange with him over a year ago whenever they wanted to take the murals out of the Boone County Courthouse. There was, I'm going to stereotype, kind of a mumbling, bumbling, homeless dude that frankly kind of frightened me. And David Tyson Smith outside of that courthouse, he did take time to chat with that guy, and I'll always remember that. Welcome to the show, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth. Producer Hannah is here. Get on to Missouri Times. Great stuff regarding end of session. So special session, impactful things happen there here in the month of October. Post-session stuff. So what do you hear now, Scott, while roaming the hallways in our state's capital?
Well, you've got a little friction coming from that. You've got, number one, I think the governor is very happy the tax cut got done. I personally think he called the special session for the ag bill anyway, and this was like the cherry on top. So I think the governor's happy. I think the governor, the governor, the House, and really the governor and the House had very different ideas on what they wanted the bill to look like. The Senate came in with their compromise bill that ultimately was taken up and passed by the House. So I think you see all three. Nobody's totally happy. The Senate's kind of annoyed by both of them, and the House, of course, would in state government. I don't think a lot of folks there have actually balanced budgets. So you have some residual anger, but the real part of this special session, the real insight, is that it showed the rifts in the Republican Party. You look over at Kansas and see what happened. It has always been your rural legislators. Your old farmer, your old insurance agent, they give in. They kind of, your old football coach gets elected to the House. The suburban people come in with their radical stuff, full of vigor and whatever they've read on Facebook with some right winger that morning, and they give in a little every year, and now and the suburban folks would always kind of give back, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of placate them and not mess with ag. Well, you saw the suburban folks take a knife and come for ag's throat. And I think it's highlighting the split in the Republican Party. And it's just two different versions of what you think the state should be. There's some folks that think our state's sons should be like a Curtis Gregory, a businessman, farmer, Mizzou football player, led his public school to glory on the football field. And you've got another very dedicated group of suburban folks that think this state should be Rob Vescovo's. It should be suburban bankrupt Uber drivers. And it's just a very stark difference, and that fight is very real, and it's going to be the fight. Sometimes you see the first battle of the war, and it tips off what's going to happen. That's going to be the fight in the Republican Party is, do you let the suburban folks just take over? Do the rural folks stand up for themselves? I think the rural folks were shocked that after all they gave them last session, when it came down to it, they wouldn't even give them a vote on an ag bill in Missouri. And I think they're not only shocked, they're angry. And you might have, as we say in rural Missouri, you might have got our dander up.
And I'm wondering, you think Lincoln Huff, how many more people in the state of Missouri know his name now than prior to the special session?
I mean, the guy is a political star, but it's kind of funny. I'll just be just us folks talking here on the radio. Yeah. Lincoln Huff is the guy. He's almost like that quarterback that is good and could be all state, but does he want it bad enough? And then you see folks that aren't that talented and they want it so bad. Oh, they want it so bad. And I, to be honest with you, Lincoln Huff is right now the most talented legislator in the state of Missouri. He has been for a while, frankly, but he doesn't come on and talk about those successes on your show. He does not promote himself very well. And the difference is Eric Schmidt was a very good legislator in his time. Eric Schmidt had no problem promoting himself. And I wonder with Lincoln, a guy like Lincoln who could absolutely be a leader, the fact is his caucus in these primaries just took a dive. They didn't even compete. It was a sad, pathetic effort. And what folks in his caucus like Lincoln have to realize is it's not enough just to be a good legislator, because what you're going to find is there's fewer people that want to legislate with you. You're going to have to take your message to shows like this, to Facebook, to organizing. And let's be honest now, there's a bit of precedent set. There used to be a time where Republicans wouldn't even campaign against sitting Democrat state senators. Now they campaign against each other. It's just a new world. And here's the thing. You can either wake up and realize you're in a fight. You know how you get beat up in a bar fight? Just to be honest, Brandon, I'm 3-11-3 in bar fights in my career, which is really code. It's actually code word for 3-14. But the way you get beat up in a bar fight is you try to stop. You try to act like you're not in the fight, and the other old boy is just whipping on you. That's how you really get, because most bar fights last about 60 seconds and end up in like a hair-pulling headlock. However, you get the old boy who one boy knows he's in a fight and the other boy is trying to pretend like he ain't. That's how somebody gets hurt. And right now, Lincoln's caucus, Caleb's caucus, has been hurt because they've been in a fight for 4 years. The other old boys have no problem saying they're dirty dogs, and they'll tell you why. And they've been trying to pretend like they're not in a fight, and they've been getting whipped for 4 years.
State Senator Lincoln Huff reps the Springfield area. Our guest, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. Some great stories regarding the special session. Also hosts the TV show This Week in Mid-Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics. There you go. Trying to promote our show again. This Week in Missouri, not Mid-Missouri Politics.
You don't miss a trick.
I don't, man. Scott Faughn joining us this morning here on the show.
They didn't have a demise. They multiplied. They're like gremlins. They multiplied. They're twice as strong as they were. It was a true. I'm a person that appreciates talented legislators and talented politics. What Senator Eigel did was probably the best political move of the year, including it even tops his move of beating Senator White. No, they're not gone at all. They doubled in size. I think the first thing, keep in mind, this whole thing started with a leadership race, right? When Schatz and Rowden beat Onder and Hoskins, there's about half a dozen of those old boys that never got over it. 4 years later, still ticked about it. And you can say it's about a lot of other things, and there is truth to all those things. The fact is, this is about a leadership race. If they had went outside and fought, they'd be best friends to this day. So they just went out in an old hayfield, throwed punches like we would in rural Missouri. But that ain't how this works. So they hold grudges and hate each other. And there's another leadership race coming. I personally think Caleb Browden has 13 votes that he can probably count on to be pro tem. Now, it's a Senate race. The Governor Parson could tell you about how you can walk into a room and thinking you've won a Senate caucus race and lose. And I guess it works out where you could be governor still. So there's nothing in the world. But I think Caleb Browden, Columbia will have the Senate pro tem in their district, in their county. I'm pretty sure. But the floor leader is going to be a different race. You have Senator Bernstetter from Jeff City, who is the Lincoln Huff candidate, the Caleb Browden candidate, and Senator Andrew Koenig, who would be the remnants of your Chaos Caucus, which won, I guess it's got another 3 potential allies. I wouldn't say members, but allies, maybe 4. I mean, that floor leader race is already personal. It's bloody. Senator O'Loughlin's running. I honestly think Andrew Koenig has the most hard commits. I think Senator Bernstetter has the most potential to get votes. And I think Senator O'Loughlin could probably get more than Senator Koenig, but we'll see. The way they'll elect that is they'll all vote, and the bottom one will get kicked off, and then that person's votes will shift to somebody else till they get a majority. So it's going to be a bloody, bloody fight. Anybody that tells you they know for sure where that floor leader race is will lie to you about other stuff too. Don't buy a cow off of them. It will be the one thing you can rest assured, it will be personal, petty, angry, and vitriolic, and whoever loses. I mean, Andrew Koenig, when I think of a guy in office that's like a Christian, I kind of think of Andrew Koenig. If there's a guy that could shake it off and move on, it would be him. However, his supporters, I don't think, will just take a loss without being very angry. And then, can you imagine your Chaos Caucus with Caleb Browden in leadership together? I mean, it would be great for me and you, but it's going to make for some interesting times in the state Senate. Exactly.
The Missouri Times, Scott Faughn, also hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Who do you have on This Week in Missouri Politics?
We have Congresswoman Ann Wagner, one of my absolute favorite people in politics, my political person. If I had a crush on somebody, intellectually it'd be Jim Bukowski, but just overall it'd be Ann Wagner. If you want to hear how the cow ate the cabbage, you can just talk to Ann Wagner. She'll just tell you. I happen to adore her. I probably oughtn't say that, but it's just the truth. You'll be able to tell in the interview. Ann will just tell you what's up. You ain't got to fish some opinion out of her. You just hold still, and she'll give you 5 or 6. And she's going to give us a few of them this week. She's just outstanding. If you've never took the time to listen to the Congresswoman from St. Louis talk, Brandon, you'd love her. And you almost oughtn't have her on because you'll end up just like me. You'll be smitten with her.
Actually, I spoke with her at the event you did earlier this year for Roy Blunt, and she is a great conversation piece. That is for
my
sure.
gosh.
One of her
She
colleagues.
just tells you what she thinks.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. She's and she's not mean about it. She is direct. One of her colleagues, Kevin McCarthy, as you and I sit here and hang out, Scott, one of her colleagues, Kevin McCarthy, right now is in Missouri this morning. What is he doing here? Why is he here? We'll have that story coming up about 5 minutes from now. Scott, always appreciate you joining us here on the show.
All right, Brandon, and I tell you what, we're going to have to get together and talk about how the Cardinal season ended. I think it affects many things. I'm in day 4 of mourning. It's getting a little better, but it's going to be a while. It just, when you could have won and you lost, it just makes for a hard way to end the season.
get letters.
We don't get any letters.
So many letters.
We get texts.
A whole bunch of letters.
Facebook messages.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
Love the listener mailbag. Really good questions this morning. I want to mention this first, and you can always text us 874-9390. We are in the 573 area code, 573-874-9390. And 98% of the time, we answer 100% of your text messages. Is the math making sense there?
No, but it doesn't usually when you do math, so I'm used to that.
Usually, just so you know, when you do text us, we do more often than not. We do try to respond at least on air or personally via text. So I just want you to know your texts just aren't going into some like database kind of thing. We do answer your text. Sometimes, depending on the number of interns we have in here and depending on whoever's here and whoever's not here, we may not always be able to respond personally. But I do want you to know that we are reading your text and trying to respond. I want to start here, though, before we get into your text.
All of that setting up that we're going to read some text messages.
Yeah. Well, people are asking really good questions. Kevin McCarthy, right now, as we sit here and chat, coming up on 8 o'clock, Kevin McCarthy is in Missouri right now. What is he doing? He's campaigning with Mark Alford right now in St. Louis. Mark Alford, of course, running for that 4th congressional district seat currently held by Vicky Hartzell. And we're just throwing it out there. Say, hey, Mark, if you get a chance, have Kevin call in here to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, which reminds me, Senator Roy Blunt, about this time, 24 hours from now, your senior U.S. Senator Roy Blunt will be on Wake Up Mid-Missouri at this time tomorrow morning. And kind of always fun, one of our co-hosts from time to time, my dad, will be co-hosting here on the show tomorrow. Some of the texts we're getting, 874-9390. We were talking about how do we get folks out to vote. We talk about get out and vote, but we're not making it happen. We can look at voter turnout. For example, primary, I think in Cole County back in August was like 30%, Boone County 22%. I get it. It's a primary. Still should be better than that. And folks say, well, do we really want more people out voting? And I say, yes, but Mike he says we'd be better off if the less educated on the topics didn't vote. So in other words, Mike is saying, do we really want more people voting? Yeah, if they agree with us. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, if you think the way I do. But no, seriously, we got to vote. Bob asking in the listener mailbag, do you think Tulsi Gabbard made the switch to try and get the VP nomination in 2024? Is that why she dropped out of the Dem Party? Yes, but also she is true to herself. I think we've known for a long time where her political ideations are. Coming up, when stereotypes don't work, we're covering that at 8:10.
They weighed those issues back and forth and came to the conclusion that on the whole, more harm than good would come from Amendment 3. It could open the door to increased teen usage when you make it more readily available and more socially acceptable.
That is Jamie Morris, I should say. He is with the Missouri Catholic Conference, chatting with KOMU Channel 8, 27 days until you and I go to the polls and we vote on Amendment 3. Most people know it as the recreational weed amendment, and their stance is we don't like this for, I guess, basically moral reasons, and that's fine. This is one of those things, I don't want to say I've backtracked or I've changed my mind, because that's not politically advantageous for me to change your mind about. What's the phrase we use, Houseworth?
You've evolved.
Thank you. We've evolved maybe on that issue, because there's potentially enough other junk in this thing, in Amendment 3, as it relates to the legalized. And here's the thing. I have no philosophical or moral qualms with weed. I really don't. And I will vehemently disagree when people say, well, it's addictive. It is not physically addictive. It is not physically addictive. People say, well, it increases visits to emergency rooms for psychosis. That's because people get so twisted up in, they get twisted up in their head. And already I hear the Lincoln University police chief, Gary Hill, is maybe taking. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah. Stephanie Bell is back on Monday. And I want to welcome him. What a pleasure it is to have Lincoln University police chief Gary Hill. Were you taking exception to something I said, or were you agreeing? On what aspect of it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and here's what I think is, it's not like you get high and all of a sudden you're going to zap in psychosis. People get twisted up in their head. It's a psychological thing. But let me ask you, then thanks for popping in. Gary Hill, police chief, Lincoln University Police Department. Is weed, marijuana, cannabis, is this an issue on campus? Is it something that we see causing problems at Lincoln University? Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting point. And I wanted to ask you this too, since you popped in. As it relates to stuff on campus, one of the things we talk about, we're pretty open here on the show. We're pretty honest about where we stand and what we think, and we're pretty honest about our own foibles, about our own character defects, and when we're being hypocritical. And one of the things we talk about a lot is we stereotype. There's people that work for the federal government that make six-figure salaries, stereotyping people at airports to protect the security of our nation as they look for terrorists, and basically they stereotype. And we say we stereotype because it works. But a recent community discussion, and I think this is phenomenal, we're also honest when we say, but stereotyping doesn't always work. And I think you're in a unique situation where there is a tendency to stereotype what happens at Lincoln University. But a lot of times those stereotypes are wrong. Can you talk about that for a minute? It's interesting. It was one of my first memories so I grew up for the most part in mid-Missouri. Left, was gone for a long time. Street lights came on. Mom and Dad said it was time to come home, so I came back home. But one of my first memories specifically of being here in mid-Missouri, there was a young lady by the name of Misty Young who spent a lot of years. Mm-hmm. You know Misty? Okay, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and she took me to the homecoming game, and I think it was 2015, and we did the parade and the homecoming. Just one of my the first memory of being in mid-Missouri that sticks out in my head. Our guest right now, Lincoln University Police Chief Gary Hill, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Chief, was that the one out near the soccer fields now on 63, or was that a different incident? It was on the Jason Gym. Okay, I remember that. But there was another incident, and I want to focus on the positive things. There was another incident out at the soccer fields, and there was some building out there, and people were fighting. And I remember you guys, but none of the suspects attended Lincoln University. In fact, none of them were from Jefferson City. I think they were from Kansas City and Memphis and places like that. But it got a lot of attention. I certainly remember covering that. I want to go back to what you talked about earlier in terms of the beautiful campus there at Lincoln, because it is just the landscaping, and Dr. Mosley's really focused on trying to work closely with the city and the community. As you know, that's very important to him. You specifically at your department, not only the beautiful campus, but you also, guys, are starting, with the governor's help, a law enforcement, essentially, academy. Where's the project at right now? What's the status? Mm-hmm. So that's underway. Thank you.
All right, Police Chief, Lincoln University, Gary Hill, hanging out with us this morning here on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS AM 950. Hey, before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you, what is my sister? She is a police chief in a small town down I-70 right now. And you can watch as you watch on our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube. Watch the show. Get behind the scenes stuff. Wearing my support the black and blue bracelet. Been wearing it for 7 years. So I have a deep appreciation for people in law enforcement and all frontline responders. What is it that you like most about what you do, Chief? Yeah. 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 And isn't that kind of, I think that drives a lot of, and not just what you do or any frontline responder or whatever it is that you do in life or a profession, but I think, isn't that what drives a lot of the human psyche is we want to do something that, number one, that we enjoy, but we want to do something that makes a difference. I think that drives a lot of us, right? Nice. All right. Hey, man, let's hang out again real soon. And seriously, if you ever need anything, our studio line, you need us last minute, 573-874-9390. You need something last minute that we can do to be of service to Mid-Missouri, specifically Lincoln University. And obviously, you know where the studio is. Please keep us in mind so that we can help help make a difference here, okay? All right, thank you. Lincoln University Police Chief Gary Hill coming up. Well, I'm thinking somebody Good morning, 8:26 time for the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. Steph is back on Monday. My name is Branden Rathert. You know, I think about our small local businesses, and you can look up stats and figures. The impact of small local businesses in the state of Missouri. That's what drives the economy. These great big factories and, they hire several hundred people. Those are cool too, but really it's small local businesses. It's people like Frosty's Automotive and people like that really make the world go around. So I get frustrated when I see things coming out of D.C. that could hurt small local businesses. Biden administration proposing a new rule that could reclassify, reimagine, evolve, reclassify millions of gig workers as employees. Now, this is a move that could deal a significant blow to small businesses across the country. This coming from the Labor Department. Found this yesterday. They unveiled a new proposal that would make it more difficult for companies to classify their workers as independent contractors. Now, it's a change that could have major consequences for ride-hailing, delivery, and other industries that depend heavily on gig workers. Now, companies are required to provide certain benefits, legal protections to employees, but not contractors. And that's fine because if you're a gig worker, don't you assume that risk. That's you. You're saying, hey, listen, I'm going to work for Uber or whatever your gig thing is, right? You know that. You've made that decision. I'm not going to require a business say, well, but you have to do this. You know that getting into it. And that's where I get frustrated is, the people in government, they want to make decisions for you. This is how it's going to be. And I don't like that. And here's the other way. I look at this 27 days out until the election and you have, I think it's till 5 o'clock tonight to register to vote. Till 5 is the deadline. That's the deal. 5 o'clock tonight, register to vote. If you've moved, whatever it is, and I don't want to bug Steve Korsmeyer or Breonna Lennon or any other local election clerk, but really, man, if there's... I know, right? That's why we elected you to be the office holder, man. That's why you're doing it. But really make sure, like, if you've moved, and I don't know, maybe you've gotten married. So this is something producer Hannah's going to be dealing with when she gets married. You're going to have to go and do something with your voting stuff because your last name will change. It will change from Hannah the producer to you're going to get, because it says, if you look at Hannah's driver's license, it says Hannah the producer.
Yeah, totally.
And you're going to have to change that. So the point, and if you've moved, that's another thing, just to make sure that you are good to go. So I think the point of the story is, seriously, don't get married and don't ever move again. Register to vote and call it good.
I hope to move out of the rental we're in and purchase a home eventually. But okay.
Yeah, don't move, don't get married, and it'll be much easier that way. Coming up just a few minutes from now here on the show. So tomorrow, our senior U.S. outgoing Senator Roy Blunt, he's joining us about 7:45. We're going to talk about craziness in D.C., what's happening in the hallways there. My dad will co-host tomorrow. Now, coming up 5 minutes from now, about that live grenade found in mid-Missouri. That's not a live grenade found in mid-Missouri. That's not even the best part of the story. Best part of that story that you want to share with your coworkers today is coming up 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
Everybody in the room, from Marsh to Houseworth to producer Hannah, laughing. And you might be, so why are we playing this hot mic moment?
I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
From Ronald Reagan from back in the day. And here's why. Just because. It's a class, right? Do we need a better reason?
You know, it was
just because. And here's the other thing. When that happened, listen, hot mic things, now that's, over the past 10 years, technology advances. We get more and more of these hot mic moments. Back then, that was a pretty big deal compared to now. We catch somebody on hot mic saying, you don't F with the Biden. It's kind of like, okay. But back then, that was pretty substantial.
It was a big deal, and basically it was in 1984. It was during the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
John, you and I remember it, and it was not as more, the early 80s and late 70s were more tense, but 84, I remember the Morning in America commercial. 84 was still right in the middle of the Cold War. He said it was an off-the-record joke, if you will, but the Soviet Union denounced it. Walter Mondale, who was a former vice president, denounced it. He did, as I recall, he apologized, but the Soviet Union did go on, or basically they went on the highest alert. But I think for young people, especially young people that wouldn't have any recollections of that, the biggest thing, Brandon, is that it was controversial, yes, but within 2 days, the story was over. It really, if that were today, you would have the talk shows would be talking about, oh my God, The View would be talking about it for 2 weeks, but Fox News would be all over it. It would be a bigger deal. The media was different then. I think they were more professional, quite frankly, in those days, but they only had one newscast, and it came on at 5:30, and if you weren't tuned in, you didn't know what was going on. People didn't even know about this till when Dan Rather came on that night, or I believe it was John Chancellor on the other channel, but it was a big deal, and it did upset people. Make no mistake about it, it upset them, but it was one that within a couple days, the story just went away. Exactly. But also the biggest thing is things were not nearly as partisan in those days as they were today. Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale were friends. Yes, they had some jabs at each other during the debate, but it was not, it's nasty today.
And now I feel really bad, you having said that, saying, 2 days later it was dead. Hey, it was a hot mic moment. He was kidding around. And today I'm still playing something that Joe Biden was caught on hot mic saying, you don't F with the Biden. It's a week later, and I'm still funning with it here in mid-Missouri. I feel really bad now.
That's all good.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's great to see you, my friend.
John Marsh is here. My name is Branden Rathert. You can be here, too, if there's something we can do for you. 874-9390. 874-9390. Missouri's popping right now politically, and we're going to move forward from the political talk because I want to talk about in Saline County, there's a live grenade found, and that's not even the best part of the story. There's more to the story, and I want to turn you on to. So we've got Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House right now. He's in Missouri. He's hanging out with Mark Alford. They're in St. Louis doing a fundraiser. Mark Alford, the former Kansas City TV guy. He's running for the seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. Or as Mike Zweifel from the Boone County GOP Pachyderm Club calls him, a reformed TV reporter, a recovering TV reporter. By the way, I want to thank everybody showing up last night. Shimon Jones, Republican, running for Boone County Recorder of Deeds. And there have been a lot of fundraisers recently, so we're popping here in mid-Missouri. And I wish on a local level, whether it's Monticello County, Callaway County, Cole County, and I know there's people like Rudy Veet. He shows up to events, supports other candidates, and we have, and there's a lot of that in Boone County that we've seen recently. Chuck Basie, Cherie Tolson-Reich, or some local state reps, man. Like every local event for candidates, maybe that aren't even in office or fundraisers, Cherie and Chuck are there. They're there every time supporting those candidates, and they were there last night for Shimon Jones. And I think that's important, especially if you have a candidate that's never held office before. shores them up. It gives them support. There are times I wish I would see more other candidates showing up. If you've got candidates showing up for your fundraiser, I wish you would show up for their fundraisers. So Kevin McCarthy is in Missouri right now. Ted Cruz is going to be in town.
Where's he going to be? Do you know?
So he's going to be touring Missouri. As a matter of fact, Ted Cruz is going to be joining us on the show probably tomorrow.
Wow.
We'll chat with him today. Roy Blunt is also going to be here on the show. So we're excited about that. And so Missouri's popping. So Eric Schmidt easily has the Senate race, but Missouri becoming a hotbed for a lot of these national politicians.
That bus tour with Senator Cruz is a big deal. It really is.
And now Rick, he's on Wake Up Mid-Missouri right now, too. Rick, welcome into the show, man. What can we do for you?
Well, thanks for taking my call. But, Ronald Reagan was just joking and pulling their leg because they had called him a war hawk during the campaigns. But Joe Biden just days ago said we were closer to a nuclear Armageddon than we had been since the 1960s. But this morning, Joe Biden is saying, well, I don't think that Russia will use nuclear weapons in the Ukraine. It's the same old. I just wanted to point out, ignorant is in charge in Washington, D.C. at this time.
Yep. Rick, thank you for the phone call. So this is how bad it is. So every time Joe Biden gets out and talks, and I want to move on from this, I'm tired of beating up on the guy, but every time he talks, staffers and whoever, they come out and they've got to clean up his messes. It's getting so bad now he's being forced to clean up his own messes on things. We're this close to nuclear war. Oh, ignore what I said. He could go and get a colonoscopy and his brain scan would come back abnormal. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but one thing I can tell you, John, and you bring up a good point. The media, again, was different in those days, and Richard Nixon said they were very liberal in those days. I don't agree with that. I think they were very fair in their coverage. If you look at some of the debates, you can tell that. But certainly, if you look at the articles, and there's an article I'm looking at right now, and I recall this, CNN and CBS News both heard what the president said about we begin bombing. They did not report on that right away. They held off. And again, things were different in those days, but it was just and yes, people said he was a cowboy and they were going to start a world war, etc. But I do think it's important to note too that it was just a different era. It just wasn't as partisan. Right. And Ted Turner, obviously a progressive, no question about that. But in those days, CNN was much more known for its breaking news, and they definitely stood by it in their coverage. They had Bernie Shaw covering stuff. It was different than the coverage today. So your point's well taken, John.
I'm thinking of classic hot mic moments. Obama, and I can't remember what year this was.
The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing?
Why would he do that?
He's a jackass.
And I can't remember who.
I don't remember that.
Or what he was talking about. And then Carly Fiorina, she was a congressman from California in 2016, I think. Running.
She ran for president. I think she was a Hewlett Packard, as I recall.
Yes.
Was she? I don't remember her being, but it doesn't matter. She was running for president.
She was running for president, and she's on a TV set, and she was getting ready to debate, I can't remember the exact circumstances.
Lauda saw Barbara Boxer briefly on television this morning and said what everyone says, God, what is that hair?
So she doesn't think she's on air. And here, this is such if I'm stereotyping, a woman, cat kind of thing, another woman. Did you see her hair? And I'm stereotyping, but there you have a woman. Did you see Barbara Boxer's hair?
And of course, What? And again, John, I don't remember that one. It is interesting. But again, a lot of what he said was off the cuff. There's no question about that. But I still, old radio guy, and the last point I'd make about how things were different when he came here to Columbia in '87, and our older listeners remember he went to Hickman High School in Fairview. He got off Air Force One, and Columbia was pretty progressive even then. The town just turned out everybody. But the first guy, Reagan waited. He did not want to be first off the plane. He stood aside, moved to the other side, let Congressman Harold Volkmer, a Democrat, a pretty progressive Democrat in those days, although now he'd be considered conservative, come off the plane first. It was just completely different. You would never today see a Democratic congressman riding on Air Force One with a Democratic congressman riding with a Republican president. It just was, but it was done in those days.
All right, let's move forward. Oh, Randy says via text, Obama, when he said he's a jackass, he was referring to Kanye West. Randy, we appreciate the text. 874. Or yay, as he goes by nowadays. He's one of those people, by the way, and I don't put a whole lot of stock into what celebrities say when it comes to politics. I completely backed him when he wore a shirt that said White Lives Matter, and I appreciated him even more. Somebody said, why did you wear that shirt that says White Lives Matter? And he said, because they do. Man, he got a lot of points. And then we took all those points away for the ensuing stuff. He said, before we move forward, what happened in Saline County? I always enjoy these stories. Live grenade found, but when it happens in mid-Missouri, it's a little different. What happened here? Yeah, Sherry Mullins, Saline County Sheriff's Office, talking to our news partners at ABC 17.
It's actually not terribly unusual, particularly in like old homes or barns for people to find old military-style devices in those. Absolutely, we've seen it before several times.
Yeah, so it's not that uncommon. Coming up, we're going to open up the refrigerator, see what we have in the way of leftovers here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, we're opening up the refrigerator, seeing what we've got in the way of leftovers. And, Marsh, I hope you got some stuff to munch on in your fridge, because I'm following Hannah's What's Hot with Hannah, which we do every morning at 7:25, following her story about adult happy
meals.
I'm spent. I've got nothing left. So I've got nothing for leftovers. Yeah. Yeah. And it's always what always makes me stop and do double takes on that is like, and these things are happening right now. There is somewhere probably a machine gun in some old woman's and they don't even know about it until we know about it. I do want to cover this in leftovers. I want to thank everybody for showing up last night for the annual Tigers on the Prowl event. It was cool getting to see a bunch of local folks. It's always a great event. And seeing a lot of these small businesses showing up, not because they're businesses, but like Tim from Atterbury Auction Realty Company, Shane Winters Financial Coaching, and then all the people that do the work behind the scenes to make something like that happen. I think it's pretty cool. So my dad's getting excited. The Gary Nolan Show is coming up, his favorite show here on the radio station. And my dad's actually... he's going to be one of our co-hosts tomorrow. Tomorrow we have U.S. Senator Ted Cruz on the show. Senator Roy Blunt is going to be here. My dad gets a special, and he's going to be here tomorrow co-hosting on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I always get a kick out of when my dad co-hosts on the show, but he gets really excited for the Gary Nolan Show. Loves the Gary Nolan Show. The only thing he loves more about the Gary Nolan Show is when Jennifer Bukowski is hosting the Gary Nolan Show. Jennifer is hosting again today. And as we wrap up here, at least in my mind, we got a text earlier from Rebecca, 874-9390, and I want to get your opinion on this. She says, where can I go and read specifically recreational weed, just layman's terms about Amendment 3, recreational marijuana? My response was, unfortunately, you can go and either read all 197 or 39
legal size pages, single spaced.
Legal size pages, single spaced, but I don't think there's anywhere where you can get just a non-part.
An unbiased viewpoint of what exactly it is and what are the drawbacks from it.
Are you going to cover this? Because that's one of the things as an attorney, I think you and Stephanie Bell, who's back on Monday, do so well with taking this legal mumbo jumbo and distilling it down and explaining it to me like I'm 2 years old. Can you do this for me today on your show?
I'm doing a twofer because I'm like having my the two guys I know who have been longtime staunch marijuana legalization advocates in Missouri, Ethan Thampe and Dan Vietz, used to be great friends. They are completely on opposite sides of this issue.
Really?
And I'm going to have both of them on the show later in the 11 o'clock hour, one after the other, to explain why you should vote yes or no on Amendment 3 in November.
Do we need to have security on standby?
I've been working out. We'll be okay.
All right. That's 11 o'clock. Jennifer Bukowski filling in on the Gary Nolan Show today. Here on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 KWOS News Radio AM 950. We'll see you tomorrow.